Cameron here again, New Way Firearms Training. I wanted to talk a little bit today about pistol mechanisms. We have basically two types of pistols. You have semi-automatic pistols and you have revolvers. They each have pros and cons, but for the modern carry, the modern use, the predominant is semi-automatics. So we're going to talk about that first. And the modern semi-automatic, many times, are polymer based. Just means that it's not all metal, basically. Like this particular, it's a SIG 320 M17. It's like the military model with the manual safety on the outside. So it has a polymer grip frame, steel slide, steel insert firing mechanism. So it's a semi-automatic pistol. Look on the safety side of it. What's the first thing you should do when you're handling a pistol? Is make sure it's not loaded. So, can you tell if this is loaded or not? Because I can't just at a glance. So what you need to do, take out the magazine. Is the magazine loaded? Yes or no? Which in this case, no. There's no holes in this magazine. Pull the slide back. Observe the chamber. Feel in the chamber. Is there any ammunition in? Is there a round in the chamber? No. So this gun is safe. There's no magazine in it. There's nothing in the chamber. It's not loaded. Okay, so fine. I can put that gun down. Now, to me, pet peeve. First thing you need to do. I just cleared that weapon. I just showed you it was safe. So if you pick that up, or if I hand it to you, what's the first thing you should do? You should check to make sure that it is not loaded. There's no magazine in it. There's no round in the chamber. It is safe. Because if you just cleared it and showed it to me and handed it to me, the first thing I'm going to do is to see, is it loaded or not? Because that's a pet peeve of mine. It's a very important pet peeve. You should always check to make sure it's unloaded. Because you can't tell. Like at a glance, even though there's no magazine in it, you can't look at this and tell me whether it's loaded or not. So you need to really check to see if it's loaded or not. Same with a revolver. Again, if I show you this, you have no idea if it's loaded or not. The only way to be sure if it's loaded or not is to check. So this has nothing in it. It's empty. And again, if I clear it and give it to you, the first thing you should do is to make sure that it's not loaded. Make sure it's empty, because if you clear it, I'm going to take it from you and first thing check to see if it's loaded or not. Even if it's laid down with the action open, the cylinder swung out, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick it up and look to see if there's anything in the cylinder or not before I handle it any further. Another thing about gun safety, you notice, keep your finger off the trigger. It's just a common practice. A lot of people make a mistake. They pick it up and their finger automatically goes inside the trigger guard on the trigger. So never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire it. Simple rule. It's violated a lot. It's how accidental discharges happen. So someone has their finger on the trigger before they're supposed to, before they're ready to fire the handgun. So never do that. Always keep it pointed in a safe direction. Never point it at something unless you intend to shoot at it. And never load it until you're ready to use it. So keep it empty unless you're going to use it. You want it ready to use, it has to be loaded. But other than that, to be safe, the big three. Never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire it. Never point it at anything unless you're willing to shoot at it. You want to shoot at it. And don't load it until you're ready to use it, until you need it. Just be safe. Whether it's semi-automatic, whether it is a revolver. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire it. Keep it pointed in a safe direction. And don't load it until you're ready to use it, or you need to use it. This, by the way, we talked about revolvers a little bit. So this is one example of a revolver. This is a double action revolver. When I pull this trigger on this firearm, it will rotate the cylinder around, pull back the hammer, and if I continue to squeeze the trigger, it will drop the hammer and fire the gun. That's a double action. Now I could place this in single action by cocking it first, where now all the trigger has to do when I pull the trigger is release the hammer. Now, if you take in the old westerns, you see the bigger, the large firearms that they use, the pistols, or revolvers as they call them nowadays. It's a single action. So the trigger on those, when you pull the trigger, the only thing it does is drop this hammer. It doesn't rotate the cylinder. It doesn't cock the hammer. All it does is, when you pull the trigger, it drops the hammer to fire the gun. That's a single action. Like the old cowboy movies. So, it's one of just the many facets we get into with training. He was talking about the different mechanisms. As you get into it more and more and more, you learn about taking care of it, taking it apart, cleaning it, how to store it, where to store it, what's legal for storage, what's not legal for storage, where you can take it, how to transport it, and the use of it, which is a whole different story. So that's until next time. Just want to get a little bit on the handgun safety.